camera, lights, IPA. How much do you cost? Buddy, I don't think people can cost things anymore. We got rid of that a long time ago. I'm getting a few emails every day from programmers. Your image is broken, my guy. Interested in working with Geographic remotely. The first question I usually ask is, what is your rate? We pay by the hour. Oh my god, ew. What surprises me is how often people incorrectly estimate themselves in both directions. I hear very different numbers from $5 to $500 per hour. This is insane. First off, if you're quoting yourself as $5 per hour, no dude, that's illegal. And if you're quoting yourself as $500 per hour, can you send me like 20 bucks? You can afford it. I never say no, but usually come up with my own hourly rate estimate. This article explains what factors I do and don't take into account. These are my personal criteria, don't take them as an industry standard. I do find them objective and logical though, so let me explain. My guy, if it is personal criteria and you find it to be objective, then that's not personal. I got a feeling I'm not going to like this article very much, and this is probably going to be a very rage bait article. Open source contribution. This is the first and the most important characteristic of a software developer. Do you contribute to open source projects? Do you have your own open source libraries that are used by some community? Do you write code that is publicly available and used? If you have nothing to show here, I see three possible causes. First, you're too shy to share your code because it's crap. False. Obviously, this is not a good sign, not because your code could be bad, but because you are not brave enough to face this fact and improve. Okay, honestly, that's kind of fair, but still not really. In our teams, we pay a lot of attention to the quality of code, and most of our new team members get surprised by just how high our quality bar is. You should probably lower your quality standards just a little bit. Like if it's catching people off guard, you might be a little bit too high. You will also be surprised. The question is whether you will be able to adapt and improve, or if you will give up and quit. Yeah, no, I'm out. If you didn't share your code before and have never dealt with negative feedback, you won't feel comfortable in our projects where quality requirements are very high. Okay, but here's the thing, right? If you're giving negative feedback, how are you delivering that negative feedback? Is the negative feedback about the code specifically, or are you targeting the person? Because here, it sounds like you're targeting the person and not necessarily the code. I'm willing to bet when this man is reviewing code, he says shit like, your code, right? Like, oh yeah, your code is bugged because of ABCXYZ. Which here's the thing, if you're ever reviewing code, if you're in a position to do that, don't phrase it like that. Because obviously, yes, that is their code, they know that. Hello, Kochka. Obviously, you don't want to phrase it like that. Obviously, it's their code. But if you're saying things like, your code is bad because ABCXYZ, then it needlessly ties the developer to the development itself in a very emotional way. You don't want to do that, because then it just comes across as you targeting the person specifically, when we know that's not the case, but that's what it comes off as. So if you're ever going to say your code is bad, don't. The code is bad. Anyway. The second possible cause is that you work from 9 till 5 for food without passion. Yeah, my guy, that's what a job is. Actually, nobody manifests it that way. Instead, I often hear something like, my company doesn't pay me for open source contribution, and at home I want to spend time with my family. Yes. Bro, when I walk out the office door, that's it. I'm done. I'm clocked out. Phone is off, you can catch me later. In modern software development, most of the code we're working with is open source. Libraries, frameworks, tools, instruments, etc. Almost everything you're using in your commercial projects is open source. By paying your salary, your employer does already invest in open source products because you're an active user of them. The problem is that you are not interested in becoming more active in that contribution. I see this as a lack of passion and self-motivation. Will you be an effective developer in our projects? Not at all, because our entire management model relies on self-motivation. Okay, but here's the thing though, self-motivation does not have to equate working for free. You know, some software engineers, when they go into the office, that is the only time they do code, because they're there for the job, they're there for the money. Honestly, almost all of us are. The passion is just a side effect of that. Some of us are very passionate about what we do. One of the main reasons why people get jobs is because they need a job. They got bills to pay, they have families to feed, they've got stuff that they need to take care of, and they can't do that without the finances that is generated from a job. So taking the effort to learn how to code, whether that's going to a boot camp or going to a college or just teaching yourself, that's very self-motivating. Like, congratulations, kudos to you for doing that. Every single software engineer that's been able to pull that off, amazing. but that doesn't mean that you have to spend your free time outside of work, still working. Some of us do. Me personally, I'm always cracked out on a bunch of different passion projects. I'm constantly coding something, but as far as work is concerned, once I'm out that door, I'm out that door. Like this whole weekend, I haven't touched a line of code. I've been playing Helldivers and doing video recordings. And this is actually the first weekend that I've had in many, many months where I've just taken the time to relax. The last possible cause is that you don't know what to write or where to contribute, which means lack of creativity. That is not what that means. As I mentioned above, almost everything we're using now is open source, and these tools are full of bugs and not yet implemented features. At the same time, you don't see any areas for improvement. You don't know what could be done better. You're not able to at least find, report, and fix one bug in some open source product you're using every day. This means that you won't be able to find areas of improvement in our projects either, while we rely on your ability to discover problems creatively. That is not what that means. I've found a lot of bugs and areas of improvement and other things that need fixing in my work-related code bases. And the reason why is because I'm working on them constantly. I haven't found any areas of improvement or bugs or anything of the sort in open source code bases. And the reason is because I really don't use them all that often. And when I do, my use case is so minimal and so after the fact. Like, I'm not diving in and using a brand new hot off the presses alpha stage pre-alpha code base. I'm usually always going to be using something that's well established. And even then, it's always going to be a minimum subset of the features. I'm not looking for the latest and greatest bleeding edge features in the codebase. Thus, if your GitHub account is empty, I don't have that problem, and your CV doesn't position you as an active contributor to Linux kernel, yeah, why not, I immediately lose interest. Sucks to be you, man. On the other hand, when I see a 100 plus stars project in your GitHub account, I get excited and ready to offer a higher rate. Honestly, I think anybody would, because this is a crazy high number. Geographic location. It is a common practice to pay higher rates to those who live in more expensive countries. When I'm getting resumes from San Francisco programmers, the rates are 70 plus per hour. The same skills and experience cost $15 to $20 in Karachi. The reason here is the cost of living. It is much higher in the US than in Pakistan. I might have mispronounced that. However, this reason doesn't sound logical to me. Buddy, at this point, does anything sound logical to you? If you're driving a more expensive car, we have to pay you a higher salary? No. The same with the place to stay. You've chosen the country that you live in. You're using all the benefits of a well-developed country and you're paying for them. It's your choice. If you can prove to me that I have chosen to live here in America, sure, then we'll have some ground to stand on. But my brethren in Christ, I was born here. I didn't choose to be here. You decided to spend more money for the quality of your life. What does it have to do with me? Want to pay $30 for a lunch? Become a better engineer. Until then, buy a hot dog for a few bucks. Just saying that I'm already here and my lunch costs $30 is not an argument. Thus, the more expensive the place you live, the less money stays in your pocket. For us, this means that $100 will motivate a programmer from Karachi much stronger than the same $100 will motivate the same person if she lives in San Francisco. Thus, we prefer to work with people whose expenses are lower. Our money will simply work better. That sounds like outsourcing and exploitation. You sound like the type of guy to hire senior developers at junior level salaries because it's cheaper. Stack Overflow reputation. We all know what Stack Overflow has, but very few people, surprisingly few, actively contributing to it. Huh? If your profile there is empty or you don't have one, I realize that you 1. Don't have any questions to ask, and 2, you have nothing to answer. Once again, false, because most of the questions that I have already been answered somewhere, and it might not be in Stack Overflow, it could be in some other forum, but I'm not trying to get a PhD in software engineering. I just have problems to solve, and I need to figure out how to solve them. I'm not doing particularly anything innovative here, because everything could be broken down to smaller and smaller problems. And also, it's not that I haven't answered anything because I have nothing to answer, it's that I don't particularly care to spend my time looking for brand new questions on Stack Overflow in the hopes that I can be one of the first to answer them. Now, if you want to pay me for my time to do this, then yeah, we can talk. First, if you're not asking anything there, you are not growing. Again, false. Your education process stopped some time ago, probably right after you got an office job. Dude, no. Now, for a lot of developers, I do realize that very may well be the case, but for most of us, we're continually learning on the job. Or maybe you're too shy to ask, or you can't describe your questions in an accurate and precise format, or maybe all your questions already have answers. In any case, it's sad. Boy howdy, you are a negative individual. Second, if you're not answering, you simply have nothing to say. In most cases, this means that you're not solving complex and unique problems. Yeah, because most of us aren't. You're simply wiring together well-known components and collecting your paychecks. Yes, because most of us are. Very often I hear people saying that they solve most of their problems by asking their colleagues sitting next to them in the office. They say they simply don't need Stack Overflow or similar resources if they exist, because their team is so great that any questions can be answered internally. That's good for the team and bad for you. Why? You don't have a very important skill, finding an answer in a public internet. In our projects, we discourage any horizontal communications between our programmers, and you won't be able to get any help from anyone. That sounds awful. That sounds like an absolute nightmare. We discourage any horizontal communications, and you won't be able to get any help from anyone. Why would anybody in their right mind want to work at a place where the expectation is that they cannot rely on their teammates, that they cannot get help from their teammates, that they cannot ask questions or have constructive communication with their teammates? That is an absolute nightmare of a working environment. You will be on your own and you will fail because you are used to being patronized by someone senior in your office. Stack Overflow is not just an indicator of how smart you are and how many upvotes you got for the best programming joke. It is proof that you can find answers to your questions by communicating with people you don't know. It is a very important skill. Okay, that much we can agree on. Years of experience. I've written Java for 10 years. So what? This number means only one thing to me. You managed to survive in some office for 10 years. Or maybe in a few offices. You managed to convince someone that he has to pay you for 10 years of sitting in his building. Does it mean that you are writing something useful? Does it mean that your code was perfect? It doesn't mean any of that. Years of experience is a false indicator. Okay, yeah, that's totally true. It actually may play against you in combination with other indicators mentioned above. If your CV says that you just started a program 2 years ago and your GitHub and Stack Overflow accounts are empty, there is still a chance you will improve. Bro, my Stack Overflow account is empty as hell. You're just at the beginning of your career. However, if your CV says that you are a 10-year seasoned architect with 0 open source contribution, this means that you're either lying about that 10 years or you're absolutely useless as an architect. My point is that the years of experience argument should be used very carefully. Play this card only if you have other merits, otherwise keep it to yourself. Okay, yes and no, like I understand what you're getting at here, because I've met many people that have been writing code for 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years, and they're honestly not that great of a developer. Meanwhile, I've also met people that have been writing code for less than 10 years, less than 5 years, or even 3 years, and they're outstanding developers. And on both ends of the spectrum, I've seen people with completely empty Stack Overflow accounts and a non-existent GitHub account. This is like saying, oh, if you don't have a Facebook account, then you can't possibly be a social media person. There are different places you can put your code other than GitHub, and there are different places to get programming-related help other than Stack Overflow. Certifications. Oracle, Zend, Amazon, IBM, MySQL, etc. I'm talking about these certifications. In order to get them, you should pass an exam. Not an easy one, and not online. It is a real exam taken in a certification center where you're sitting in front of a computer for a few hours without any books or internet access, answering questions. Rather humiliating activity for a respected software developer? Indeed, there is a high probability of failure, which is also rather embarrassing. It is a very good sign if you manage to go through this. If you've done it a few times, even better. However, if you've earned no certifications in your entire career, it is for one of the following reasons. And I can almost guarantee that these reasons are going to be completely bogus. First, you're afraid to lose. False. A serious certification may cost a few $100s. I paid over $700 for SCEA, and you will not get a refund if you fail. If you're afraid to lose, you're afraid to fight. This means you'll chicken out in a real-life situation where a complex problem will need to be solved. Second, you don't invest in your profile. This most probably means that you don't want to change companies and prefer to find a peaceful office where you can stay forever. I remember I once said to a friend of mine, you will greatly improve your CV if you pass the certification. He answered with a smile, I hope I won't need a CV anymore, I like this company. I will admit this is not the best mindset to have. Companies absolutely can and will drop you the moment it becomes beneficial for them to do so. The only people you should have your loyalty for are yourself and your family, but you do not owe your loyalty to a company. This attitude is very beneficial for the company you're working for, but it definitely works against you. In my experience, the best team players are those who work for themselves. Healthy individualism is a key success factor. If your primary objective is to earn for yourself money, reputation, skills, or knowledge, you'll be very effective in our projects. Certifications in your profile is an indicator of that healthy individualism we're looking for. Skills variety. The more technologies or programming languages you know, the less you cost. Huh? No, because if you need your backend written in C# and you need your frontend written in Ruby, you could hire a backend developer and a frontend developer. Or you could hire a full stack developer that knows both languages. Now, of course, because the full stack dev is capable of what they're capable of, they're going to command a slightly higher salary. The only thing less here is that it's probably going to cost you less to hire the one full stack developer that can do both jobs as opposed to two separate specialized developers. I'm not saying that it's not possible to be an expert in many things at the same time, that's entirely possible, but let me give you a pragmatic reason why you shouldn't: competition. There are thousands of Java 7 programmers on the market. We can easily choose whoever we need, but there are not so many Hadoop programmers or XSLT designers. If you focus on some specific area and become an expert there, your chances of finding a job are lower, but the payout will be bigger. We usually end up paying more to narrow-skilled specialists, mostly because we have no choice. If a project we're working on needs a Lucene expert, we'll find the right person and do our best to get him or her on board. Doing our best means increasing the price in most cases. Thus, when I hear that you're experienced in MySQL, PostgreSQL, Oracle, and SQLite, I realize that you know very little about databases. Talks and publications. I think it is obvious that having a blog about programming, not about your favorite cat, is a positive factor. Even better is to be an occasional speaker at conferences or meetups. When it is a blog, I pay attention to the amount of comments people leave for your articles. If it is a conference, the most important criteria is how difficult it was to get to the list of speakers. More blog comments just means more blog popularity. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're good at what you do, or people may like you for whatever reason. Bro, the amount of AI-generated tech blogs that I've seen, all with hundreds of AI-generated drivel comments, this is a terrible metric. Of course, I realize this was also written in 2014 when we didn't have things like ChatGPT, but from a modern standpoint, this is a terrible, terrible metric. Popularity does not equal skill. Both blog articles and conference presentations make you much more valuable as a specialist, mostly because these things demonstrate that some people already reviewed your work and your talent, and it was not just a single employer, but a group of other programmers and engineers. This means that we can also rely on your opinions. Bro, if you're charismatic enough, you can convince anybody of anything. So do not hold people's opinions as fact, please. Besides that, if you write and present regularly, you have a very important skill or talent. You can present your ideas in a digestible way. In our projects, we discourage informal communications and use ticketing systems instead. In those tickets, you will have to explain your ideas, questions, or concerns so that everybody can understand you. Without enough presentation skills, you won't survive in your projects. By the way, some software developers even file patents in their names. Why can't you do this? Or maybe even publish a book? Why not? I mean, I do have a blog and I'm already a published author, so halfway there. But you ain't going to catch me speaking at a conference. Previous employment. I usually don't pay much attention to this section of your CV. Our management model is so different from anything you can see anywhere else, yeah, no shit, that it doesn't really matter how many times you were fired before and how senior of a position you have or had with your full-time employer. Even if your title is CTO of Twitter, it doesn't mean anything to me. My experience tells me that the bigger the company and the higher the position in it, the further away you stay from the source code and from real technical decisions. VPs and CTOs spend most of their time on management meetings and internal politics. I'm much more interested in what you've done over the last few years than in where you've done it and what they called you while you were doing it. See, that's totally understandable. That's another thing that this guy and I can actually agree on, but also to a certain extent, because I found in most of my experience that the higher-ups tend to make more of the technical decisions. I've never met a developer on a larger team that has made a technical decision when they weren't part of some sort of leadership or management or C-suite or anything of the sort. But yes, when it comes to hiring developers, I would much rather hire an individual contributor than somebody that's been CTO for the last 10 years. Education. Bachelor's, master's, PhD. Do we care? Not really. Education is very similar to the previous employment mentioned above. It doesn't really matter where exactly you've spent those 5 years after school. What matters is what you have done during that time. If you have nothing to say about your activity in the university, then what will the name of it tell me? Well, of course, if it is Stanford or MIT, this will make a difference. In this case, I could see that you managed to pass their graduation standards and managed to find money to study there. This is a good sign and will definitely increase your hourly rate. But if it is some mambo-jumbo university from nowhere, like the one I graduated from, keep this information to yourself. Rates. $100 an hour or more, we gladly pay to an expert who owns a few popular open source products, has a Stack Overflow score above 20K, has certifications, articles, presentations, and maybe even patents. $50 per hour, we pay to a professional programmer who has open source projects on his own or is an active contributor, has a Stack Overflow score of over 5,000, is writing about software development, and possesses a few certifications. I'm like half of these. I have open source projects on my own. I've contributed to open source projects before. I'm really not all that active on Stack Overflow. I do write about software development, but I don't possess any certifications. $30 per hour we pay to a programmer who regularly contributes to open source code, is present in Stack Overflow, and has some certifications. $15 per hour we pay to everybody else. This is $31,000 a year. I made more than this working in fast food. Don't get me wrong, and don't take these numbers personally. The rate you're getting is a measurable metric of your professional level, not of you as a person. Besides, the level is not static. It is changing every day, and it's entirely in your hands. I wrote this article mostly in order to motivate you to grow. All these criteria are applicable to new members of our team. Once you start writing some code, we measure your performance, and you may get completely different numbers. See how hourly rate is calculated. I guarantee you the very first comment on here is going to be some sort of, "Hey guy, you're kind of a dickhead." Let's see. I hope I won't have to work with someone like you, or be hired by someone like you.